So on July 1st, Canada, the United States, and Mexico are supposed to face the formal review of CUSMA. And normally, a trade review sounds like the kind of story that gets buried between bond deals and a committee hearing that nobody watched. But this one is different because this is not just a trade review. This is a trust review.
And that is the heart of the problem. Canada is walking into a negotiation with Donald Trump over a deal Donald Trump himself signed. He did not inherit CUSMA from Barack Obama. He did not reluctantly accept it from someone else. He negotiated it, he signed it, he celebrated it. He sold it as one of the greatest trade deals ever made. Then he came back into power and started talking as if Canada had somehow pulled off some grand heist at the negotiating table. That tells you everything about the problem that Canada is facing right now with the American administration.
Trump called the USMCA, which we call CUSMA in Canada, the best agreement America had ever made. He called it fair, balanced, modern, historic even. He stood there in 2020 and took a victory lap. This was his replacement for NAFTA, his trophy, his proof that only he could fix trade. So when he now turns around and says the agreement is irrelevant or that Canada needs it more than America does, Canadians have every right to ask the obvious question. Then why the heck did you sign it in the first place?
But the deeper issue is whether Canada can treat the United States as a reliable negotiating partner when the President of the United States treats his own signature like it comes with an expiry date based on his mood swings.
And that's the part that people really need to understand. A trade deal is supposed to create certainty, tells companies where they can invest, tells automakers how to build supply chains. Heck, it tells farmers what markets they can rely on. But Trump has turned uncertainty into a weapon.
Exactly. When Trump threatens tariffs, the damage starts before the tariff even lands. Businesses hold back, investors wait, factories delay decisions, and farmers get nervous. The border communities, they feel it first. Then the Canadian dollar feels it, and families feel it when prices start to rise. And then Trump points to the panic he created himself and calls it leverage.
Now, the July 1st review matters because CUSMA was designed with a 6-year check-in. If Canada, the United States, and Mexico agree to extend it, the agreement can be renewed for another 16 years. That gives North America stability. But if they can't agree, the deal can be forced into annual reviews with the possibility of expiry down the road. So that means businesses could be stuck planning their future one political crisis at a time.
And that is exactly the kind of uncertainty that Trump understands how to exploit. He doesn't need to rip up the agreement one day to cause damage. He just has to keep everyone guessing. Will there be tariffs? Will there be exemptions? Will Canada be punished? Will Mexico cut a separate deal? The constant instability becomes the pressure.
Unfortunately, Canada cannot ignore the United States. We share the world's largest bilateral trading relationship. Our auto sector is deeply integrated. Parts cross the border multiple times before a vehicle is even finished. Our energy systems are connected. Our farms, factories, ports, rail lines, and border towns are tied together in ways that cannot be untangled with a speech and a flag pin.
But there is a difference between recognizing reality and surrendering to it. Canada has to negotiate with the United States. We don't have to pretend that Trump is trustworthy. Those are not the same thing at all. So Canada can sit at the table, push for stability and defend Canadian workers, but still understand that Trump's word is not enough.
And that's where Canada's negotiating position has to change. For years, Canada's default approach was to keep the relationship calm, keep the language polite, and assume that the United States would, eventually return to normal. Well, that approach made sense when the U.S. was mostly predictable. It doesn't make sense when the president praises a deal one year and then attacks it the next.
Listen, Canada cannot build its future around the hope that Washington will behave. Hope is not a trade policy. It doesn't protect steel workers, and it doesn't keep auto plants open. Canada needs leverage, diversification, and a clear understanding that the old relationship has changed because Trump changed it. And here's something that's driving me crazy with conservatives. They keep acting like Trump is someone you can negotiate with. Carney cannot negotiate with this guy, and that is why he is going to all of the other places like Asia, Mexico, South America, and Europe. That is how you deal with Trump.
And don't fool yourself. Canada has leverage. That's what gets lost when MAGA politics talks about Canada as if we're some tiny country waiting for all their permission. Canada supplies the oil that the United States needs. We have the electricity that the American states need. We have critical minerals needed for defense, batteries, and clean technology.
Canada also has something that Trump has completely damaged on the American side: reliability. Now that sounds soft until you realize how valuable it is. Investors care about reliability, allies care about reliability, and businesses care about reliability. When the United States becomes unreliable and unpredictable, countries start looking for partners who do not threaten them every time domestic politics gets ugly. And that has created an opening for Canada. We just have to make sure we are serious enough to use it.
And what that means is that Canada cannot treat diversification like a nice slogan for speeches. We've talked for decades about trading more with Europe, more with Asia, more with democratic allies, and heck, more within Canada itself. Then we always end up going back to relying on the United States because it's close, huge, and convenient. Well, convenience has now become a national vulnerability, and we need to find a way to work around that.
And we have, because we have signed so many contracts already. In just 18 months, Mark Carney has done more than Canada has done in 20 years.
Yep.
Now, Trump, he didn't just expose Canada's weakness. He exposed Canada's over-dependence on the USA. And that's a different thing, because over-dependence, it can be fixed. Ports are being built. Pipelines are being talked about. Rail capacity, critical minerals and processing, and defense procurement. We just now need our interprovincial trade reform, and things will really start moving.
Yeah, because, it's absurd that Canada can talk about standing up to Washington while still making it harder than it should be for Canadian businesses to sell across provincial lines. We can't demand respect abroad while tripping over our own barriers at home. If Canada wants to be harder to pressure from outside, we need to become more functional from the inside.
And I know people are tired. I'm tired. Americans are tired. And a lot of Canadians are tired of waking up to another Trump threat, another insult, another tariff headline, and another comment about Canada as if we are not a sovereign country. Chaos exhausts people. It makes them feel like nothing matters and nobody's in control. And then it makes people give up because that is easier than paying attention.
But people are not giving up. And that's the part that Trump and his mega morons keep misreading. Canadians have been changing their behavior. They're skipping the US trips. They're buying Canadian where they can. People are checking labels. Businesses are rethinking supply chains. Heck, and travelers are choosing just other places to go. Now, all of that may sound small in the grand scheme of things, but when millions of people change habits, then it becomes a signal and a wave.
And that's what Trump never understood. Canada isn't just a customer to the US, it's a neighbor. We are part of the economic engine of North America.
And that's why the CUSMA review is such a serious test. Canada should push for a 16-year extension because stability matters. But Canada should not accept a deal that leaves Trump free to just keep using sectoral tariffs as political weapons. If the agreement says goods are protected, then they need to be protected. If there are dispute mechanisms, they need to actually work. Heck, if the United States violates the spirit of the deal, then there actually needs to be consequences. Otherwise, Canada is not negotiating certainty. Canada is negotiating another round of threats with just better stationery.
And a worse signature.
Yeah.
And Canada cannot let itself be split from Mexico either. That's another pressure point that Trump is trying to work on. He loves bilateral pressure because it lets him isolate countries and play them against each other. Well, I know that Carney and Sheinbaum, they've been talking regularly, and delegations have been going from Canada to Mexico and Mexico to Canada. So I think we will be okay, because a trilateral deal should not become 3 separate hostage negotiations. And we're not going to let it happen.
Nope. The smart move here for Canada is not to storm away from the table. It's to walk in with clear demands, Strong lawyers, coordinated allies, and backup plans already in motion. Canada should know exactly where it can retaliate, exactly where it can diversify, exactly where it can help Canadian workers, and exactly which industries are too important to leave exposed to Trump's next announcement. MAGA wants people exhausted. It wants allies intimidated. It wants normal people to look at the chaos and say, oh, I just can't deal with this anymore. But that is exactly how bullies win. They don't always win because they're strong. Sometimes they win because everyone else just gets tired of resisting the nonsense.
And that's why we keep coming to you every day, because we refuse to ignore the nonsense. We're going to keep calling it out because the US is insane right now.
Trump cannot be trusted.
But Canada will not be cornered. So let us know what you think. Do you think that negotiations will happen and we'll be signing a 16-year deal?
Or do you think that Trump will just tear it all up and go with sectorial tariffs right across the board?
Let us know in the comments below. And let us know, are you getting tired or are you ready to fight for 3 more years? Because that's what we got with this guy.
And if this resonated with you, make sure to like, hype, and share so people can weigh in on this themselves.
And check out the pinned comment for more links to the fun stuff. We shall see you tomorrow, everyone.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao for now.